Welcome to Jazz Zone Together. Today, we are most pleased to welcome one of America's leading jazz personalities, Doug Beach. Doug recently retired as director of the Elmhurst University Jazz Ensemble and director of jazz studies. He's also a prolific and talented composer-arranger and the creator of a highly successful music publisher, Doug Beach Music. Now I'll turn the mic over to Dick Dunscomb to conduct the interview with Doug. Dick, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bob. Wow, what an exciting day this is. One of my best and longest friends in the world, Doug Beach. Welcome, Doug.
Thanks so much, Dick. It's wonderful to be here, and I do appreciate the invitation as well. Believe me, wonderful to spend some time with you.
Well, we are excited to have you here and anxious for our visitors to learn more about you and your fabulous career. Mm-hmm. But let's start with the beginning. How in the world did you get interested in music in those early days? And what got you started on the path you're on today? Take us up to Milliken.
Yeah, I will. You know, I grew up and my parents weren't musicians, but my dad always seemed to have music in the house. Jazz was playing, and I remember very early on these LPs, Dave Brubeck and History of Jazz recordings, and I heard them, and I think that had something to do with piquing my interest in it for sure. And then as I started to go to school, I was interested in the jazz program, or in the music program certainly, and I kind of went right to the trumpet. And I was fortunate in the mid '60s to be growing up in the Chicago area. I went to a K-8 school called Lindop School, and there was really a groundbreaking educator there at the time, Paul Telasco, who went on to teach at Proviso West High School after he finished his career at Lindop. And we just, at that point, now we think of middle school jazz ensembles as being reasonably common, but boy, in the mid 1960s, they weren't. And Paul's a professional musician, and he had us playing. And so, it got in my blood early, I guess you could say, and thanks to his guidance there. And then in high school, I kept playing. And by the time I was done with that, I was pretty sure that music was going to be it for me. And you and I share an alma mater in Milliken University in Decatur, Illinois. And the great master himself, Roger Schuler, became a strong mentor to me there. And, it was funny. I started writing there, et cetera, and was playing in the band. And he taught us the meaning of excellence and what we had to reach for to get to there. And it stayed with me the whole way, and still does. The lessons I learned from him are still used, and he taught me a lot about different aspects of there wasn't just playing, there were other things too. I learned music copying from him, which certainly I had to use when I went into the publishing thing. So that's kind of how it got started. And I'm grateful for the guidance that I had from both Paul Telasco and from Roger Schuler. They were just indispensable to where I was going to go later.
They both are icons in our industry, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember those days at Milliken when we both were there with Roger. I mean, it was amazing what he was able to do. And there weren't, at that point in time, there weren't all that many college jazz organizations.
No. You're exactly right. And, he was in this small school of 1,500 students at the time, I think. And he was going to some of the early collegiate jazz festivals and taking on North Texas and University of Illinois and showing them all a thing or two about what could be done with an ensemble, for sure. Absolutely.
Well, those were great days.
Yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit about your successful career at Elmhurst. You built an incredibly strong jazz studies program. Share with us some of the highlights of that program and some of the instances that happened along the way.
Yeah, of course. Well, when I came here in the fall of '78, and just part-time, just to do the jazz band. Actually, the person who was leading the jazz band prior to me was Paul Telasco, the person we just discussed a little bit. He was also teaching at Proviso West, and just came to the decision he couldn't continue to do both. He was coming over here as an adjunct and running the band. So he asked me at the end of the year if I would be interested in doing it. And I said, yes, I would. And so I was hired to direct the jazz band. And the band played just a couple of times a year, maybe 3-4 times a year on campus, and maybe participated in the jazz festival if they had the horses to do it that year. And I just said, I'm going to try to grow this if I can. And so gradually over time, started teaching some improvisation on a private lesson basis and some arranging on a private lesson basis. And then I became full-time about 8 years later. And then I said, well, boy, it's just me here teaching, and these saxophone players come in. They should have a saxophone instructor here. So I went out, and first person I got was Ed Peterson, the great musician who now is down in New Orleans, but Ed was around Chicago there. And Ed was here, and then he moved to New Orleans to work with Wynton's father. And then ultimately Mark Colby came here. And of course, that gave me not only a great saxophone instructor, but another great musician as part of the faculty. And then I said, well, we probably need to get some rhythm section people. So got Bob Rummage here, and then Frank Caruso came, and it just grew. Tom Garling was here, is still here as well. So we added a faculty, or built a faculty that we had everybody covered. All the instruments were covered. And then finally, I created the jazz studies degree, which took a lot of time for very little pay, but was well worth it, because the students then, it kind of gave, I guess, more credibility. And all along, the band was playing, we were out doing things, and, doing major tours and backing up artists. And it just became a place that students wanted to gravitate towards. And as part of it, as you know, Dick, all your years of teaching, a big part of it is recruiting too. So I would take the band out and play in high schools, or play a jazz festival where we could, where there were high school students. And the best way to sell it is to show them your wares and what you can do. So it was a process that took time, but it seemed to build, and the department grew at Elmhurst as well, and that helped also. So that's kind of what we did. But over those years, there certainly have been a lot of highlights. We got to play with some of the greatest jazz artists in the world. Through the years, we backed up some of the greatest vocalists in the world, Patty Austin, Dee Dee Bridgewater. We got to do a tour with Doc Severinsen. We played with him at Midwest, and the memories will be with me forever.
Yeah. It's interesting thinking back on our earlier discussion about Millikan, the parallels that kind of are similar between Millikan's program, how it was built, and Elmhurst and how it was built. Yes. Similar size universities, it was all directed back to the initiative of the director. In Millikan's case, that was Roger, and in Elmhurst, man, it's you. And the things that you've been able to do with that jazz ensemble are just, they're impactful. And I wonder if maybe you could share some stories about taking them around the world and performing with people like Doc, and tell us a bit about that.
Of course. First of all, yes, what you said, the parallels are similar, because the impressions that were made upon me by Roger and what happened there, I think, were so strong. When I was a sophomore at Millikan, we did a State Department tour for a month during the month of January one year. I think it was 1973. And that was the first time I'd been to Europe, and certainly played those kind of concerts before. And I remember coming home, it was like your life had changed, So I just knew once I started teaching, I wanted to bring those kinds of experiences to my students as well. And I also remember at Millikan, Roger would always bring in a really well-known, usually from Los Angeles, musician to play with us at the Jazz Festival and be a guest artist. And Don Menza was there, I think, the first time I did that, and it made a huge impact on me. So I tried to bring those people into Elmhurst as well. And along the way, you have just unbelievable experiences. We did a concert summer concert we do outside every year here at Elmhurst for an outdoor free event. And Byron Stripling had said to me, you got to get Doc Severinsen over there. I said, he'd love your band. So he hooked me up, and then we got Doc here, and actually Byron came at that time too. And Doc seemed to like the band, and the kids responded to what he wanted. He's a taskmaster, boy. And so then we did another kind of master class with him. And then I got an email about 2 years later from his road manager asking if we would go out and do a tour with Doc. And, the first time he was here, one funny story, I'm a trumpet player as well. And he asked me when he first met, he says, what do you play? You play trumpet? I said, yeah, I do. He said, well, you got to come down to the bathroom and play with me, because he would always warm up in the bathroom because it was live and he liked the sound of it. So I go down there and I bring my horn down there, and he says, what kind of horn are you playing? Well, I said, at the time I'm playing a Bach. And he said, well, yeah, I used to play Bach. Well, let me try that. What kind of mouthpiece you playing on? Well, I said, it's a Bob Reeves. And well, I like those. Can I try your mouthpiece? I said, well, yeah, sure, Doc. Let me wash it out for you. No, and he just takes it, rubs it on his jeans, and he's playing your mouthpiece. Here, you want to play my mouthpiece? Sure, Doc. And he rubs it on his jeans. So there you are. And you're playing in the bathroom with Doc Severinsen, who I remember when I was like 8 years old, I used to kind of try to sneak by the TV to see if I could see the Tonight Show band when I was supposed to be in bed, And man, it's like priceless, and then you just getting to know those kinds of people and people who were your heroes. So I was fortunate through the years as the program grew and the jazz festival that happens here as well. I've been able to hire my heroes, just the other day, I called up Bill Holman because we became good friends. He wrote so much music for us over the years, and he was here with his band 3 times, I think it was. We gave him an honorary doctorate. He was 95 2 days ago, and I called him up, and typical Willis, I said, happy birthday, man. How you doing? He goes, well, I'm 95, but you're only going to do it once. But that would be man, a few words, So you have those kind of memories, and you got to be friends with these people who were your heroes. And boy, I can't think of too many careers where you could have that kind of that kind of an experience, Been wonderful.
Yes. And it's been a model, to say the least, for young directors coming up to see your program and what you've done, the many clinics that you've done around the globe.
Right.
The only other person I think that's written more charts for school groups is Sammy Nestico, and I don't think you're far behind him. Let's talk a little bit about the hundreds of charts that you've written, and what led you to begin to do that, and how that developed into Doug Beach music.
Yeah, sure, of course. It's been going a long time now. I started it in 1975, actually when I was still in school at Millikan. And I had written for the band, and I had written for the combo down there. And I thought, well, geez, why don't I just try to sell some of these? And no real idea about what I was doing. And so my father was a commercial photographer, and he was obviously in the arts business. So he gave me some guidance about getting a little brochure printed up. I think I had 6 combo charts is how it started in that first brochure. And sat in my dumpy apartment in Decatur and looked for any school address I could find and got this brochure printed up and started mailing them out. And I had some demo tapes that if they wanted to write in, I would send them. They run little reel-to-reel things, if you can believe that nowadays. And I started mailing them out. And I went in my mailbox one day, and there was this thing in there called a purchase order. Well, I had no idea on the planet what a purchase order was at the time. And I called my dad. I said, I got this purchase order. What's this about? And he goes, well, that means they want to buy your music. So there was an order. And then I got another order. And so all of a sudden you're encouraged. I guess, I started writing the same way. I started writing as a humanities project in high school. You could do any of the humanities and do a project. Well, I'm going to write a big band chart. So I did. And it kind of worked. I wouldn't play it for you now, but it worked, and you're encouraged by success. Anybody is, I think. And so the same thing with the publishing company. Get an order, you started shipping them out. And it was, slow at first. Then I was playing on the road at the time too. I was going out with some dance bands playing on the road. But I started this publishing company, and every fall we put a catalog out and mailed more. We started to demo recordings of them that people could get remember sound sheets. I'm sure both you guys remember those, and it grew. And then pretty soon we got some dealers. And, I think one of the first ones was Flesher Hinton out in Denver, a great music store. And they wrote to me when I sent them, shipped them the music. And they said, well, we wonder why we don't get a discount from you like we do from the other publishers. Well, I didn't know about discounts. I hadn't learned that lesson yet. So I gave them a discount and sent them a check back, whatever. But pretty soon we started to build a dealer network, and it caught on. And another probably pivotal moment in Doug Beach music too was the first time I did the Midwest Band Clinic. And we had just a table there, just a table and charts on the table. But at the time, and we were into big band charts by then, and I had written 2 charts that were just easier. They were, as we would call now, a grade 3, maybe a 2.5 even. And some of the other things were harder, more difficult, grade 4s and stuff. And they just turned out that way. I wrote them, and they just didn't need any to be any harder. And all of a sudden, people were coming. Do you have any more of these? Do you have more of these? No, those are the only 2. But I caught on real quick that there was a need there for that level of music for high school people. Everybody isn't going to play Stan Kenton's music yet, or Woody Herman's, or Buddy Rich's, or whoever's it might be, or Maria's nowadays, So that was a real moment right there. And I started to say, well, geez, why can't I write music that'll teach kids these essential swing figures and the concepts and the different grooves and a bossa nova, but have it be that the trumpets aren't playing in the sky. They're only going up to a written G maybe, and the bones are up to an E flat or an F, etc. And the sax, it could be a sax solo, but it doesn't have to have 1,016th notes. And we kind of found a niche, and since then we've taken it further with even easier things, and you can do them with super flexible instrumentation. And that's where I still can write hard things, and I've done it, but I really spend most of my time writing now, just trying as hard as I can to create what I think are valid pieces of music for young kids to learn on, so they can go and play Buddy's music and Maynard's music and Kenton's music or whoever's it's going to be, after that. So that's sort of how it went, and it's still going. I'm not sure how. We've been through, a number of different moves. I mean, Neil Chose became interested in us, and we were with Neil for about 3 years, and then we parted ways with Neil, but we've been with Kendor Music since 1995. They've been our exclusive distributor. And it's a great fit because everything Kendor does is original music, and that's what ours is too. We don't do pop tunes. We do original music, and I try to have it so kids can learn that and learn the different forms, the blues, minor blues, AABA forms, to improvise over too. And there's always in all those things, I always try to put a section where they can improvise. They can open it up and make it as long as they want or as short as they want, but at least the kids have a chance to blow and learn to, improvise over the tune. So that's probably more than you asked for, but that's the story.
No, that's not more than I asked for, but I'm telling you, man, you are filling, as you say, a niche out there that is very, very much in demand. And, we all appreciate that, Doug. It really, really is important. Now, what would you say to a young musician who'd like to follow in your footsteps? Where should he begin, and what should he do? Or should
Well, yeah, if he wants to be a teacher, is that kind of the question you mean? They want to run a program?
Well, not in that sense, more in writing, more becoming a composer.
Right. Well, the first thing, what was, I don't know, such a huge part of my education coming up. We talked about the great teachers and the wonderful programs I was fortunate to be a part of. But also, I remember my friends and I Another great jazz educator who, Dick, you know very well, and Bob, I'm sure you're conscious of, Jim Culbertson, who retired from, MacArthur Decatur High School. We were all in the Millikan band together, and there were others, great players there too, but we would always sit around and listen to recordings and listen to whoever. It could have been Buddy Rich's band, it could have been Maynard Ferguson's band, whoever's it was. And we would all sit there and, "Do you hear that? Did you hear that? Man, check that out. You hear what that person did there? You hear what that drum fill?" It could have been just a drum fill, but we were so into that. And so I learned a lot about how music kind of works from listening. And sometimes you just want to focus on what the drummer's doing if you want to learn about that, or you just want to focus on what the trumpets are doing. Or if you're going to go write a piece of music, I a lot of times think of some of the classic pieces, like, I don't know, one comes to mind as Don Menz's Groovin' Hard, it was something that Buddy's band played for a long time. So I say to myself, well, I'd like to write an easy grooving hard for young kids to play. Now, it's not going to have all the stuff that chart does, but it's got that same so that they can learn those kind of concepts in there. And so if a person wants to come up, listen to music like crazy and absorb as much as you can. And it shouldn't maybe always just be jazz. Listen to some pop music too, and some Latin, clearly Latin music, but classical music and whatever else. And maybe you can bring some of that into the writing, but you have to have a bag of tricks, I guess, that you've listened to. And that's maybe not the best term, but you have to have you got to download the library in your head, and so that you can draw from things. Yeah, I want to do something like that chart, but easier or whatever. And listening is just so important. And I can't stress that enough. And when I teach a class, I taught a class here for years at Elmhurst for jazz educators, and I would invariably have, oboe players, French horn players, people that hadn't been in jazz ensembles before. And we were singing in there, and I would say, now listen to this and check out what's going on, trying to just get them to listen and open their ears up. So for a young person coming up, listen, and that'll give you the vocabulary and the direction you need to go on and do other things from there, I think.
Yeah, thanks for that, Doug, because that has come up in 95% of our interviews, how important listening is. Learn the language. You have to learn the language.
Yeah, absolutely, you do. And, I sit here in this small office now. It's like I took my old office, put it in the dryer and shrunk it all, But around here are still LPs and all these CDs and things. That's my go-to. That's where I want to go. And with teaching, kind of related to that, with all the bands here at school, once I would pick out in the fall 6 or 8 or 10 charts we were going to start the first, few weeks of school out with. The first thing I did, now of course so much is on the internet, but the first thing I did was I made recordings of those tunes by the pros, whether it was Rob McConnell or it was Buddy Rich's band or whoever it was, and got those out to all the kids. And I just tell them, you have to listen. We're going to read, but you have to listen. And you can get the figures, you can learn the rhythmic figures, but you learn how to play them by listening. And that's it, so can't stress it enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you've also written some books about teaching jazz, very important to the people in our industry. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Jeff Jarvis and I did a book together, the Jazz Educator's Handbook, and it's got things in there about, teaching the rhythm section, certainly how to interpret rhythmic figures in various styles and literature and all that kind of stuff. And then also another thing that I did, which has been really successful for us over the years, was a couple of different versions of just rhythms in various jazz rhythms all in concert pitch that a jazz band can play. The first ones we did were just called swing rhythms, and then later with Kendor we kind of revised them a bit and did a set called Essential Rhythms for Jazz Ensemble, and those kinds of things are just something that a band director can use as a warm-up if he wants, but anything that you can help those kids to learn from. And it's not totally a book like you just said, but it's not just a chart either. It's something a little different. And then I did a couple of a whole series of duet books, jazz duets, that the rhythm section parts are, you can, download them and play along with, basically like a, Jamie Aebersold approach, if you will. But duets, and it's the same tunes, but you can mix them and match them. So a trumpet and a tenor can play, a bone and a trumpet, a tenor and a bone, whatever it might be. And those have been, I think, good things for people to learn from too, because you don't need a whole big band. All it takes is two of you, or even you playing along with the recording. You can play along with the other part on those. And we call those the power of two. And you can learn all the stuff you need to learn just from playing with other cat on the recording and emulating what that person is doing. Again, it comes back to listening, and having that role model in your head of how it's supposed to go.
Now, I know that you've been a huge supporter and participant with NAJE, IAJE, and GEN.
Mm-hmm.
How important is that for the young educator coming up?
Well, it's immense, I think. You can go to, first of all, just being involved in the organization, and it's currently GEN, that's the one we have now, and hopefully we'll have it for a long time to come. But it connects you with this resource of a website, which will give you all kinds of places you can go to find different things you might need to become better at running your program. And then if you're fortunate enough to go to the conference that they have, you're going to hear great musicians play. You're going to be around them. You're going to see them walking in the halls. You can actually go up and say hi to a great player in the hallway, and he'll talk to you. And then there's the exhibit area where you can find publications. You can find, anything that you want related to kind of the jazz world there. So those kinds of organizations, especially for someone who's kind of new at it, I think are terrific. Just like going to the Midwest too. There's just anything you need to run your program is there. But of course, the GEN conference and IAJE and NAJE before that, we're all just focused on this music we're talking about here, American, the American art form of jazz. So, but anytime you can get to any of those kinds of conferences, I think you're going to learn a ton of stuff. I know I have. I still go to those conferences and learn stuff, and I've been around it for a while. So you keep your ears open, and you're always going to learn things or meet new people and get a different perspective on it just by talking to someone. Absolutely.
Well, we've all learned a lot from this few minutes that we've spent together. You are without a doubt one of the most inspiring people that I know. And your career as a performer, clinician, conductor has had a strong impact on jazz education. Can you just share some of the highlights of your career with our listeners?
Yeah, boy, there's so many. I think, well, I'll tell you a few in different areas. When the publishing company was new, there was one chart, and I don't remember what it was right now, but you were writing the reviews for the Instrumentalist, and you gave one of our, I think it was a chart I wrote, an editor's choice. Man, I Xeroxed, I don't know how many copies of that page on the Instrumentalist, and we used that in the ads. So, I mean, it's those kinds of things when you're building it, and then that encourages you to go on. But I remember that. I'll never forget that as a highlight. And then we got some more after that. And so that was certainly for sure. And being able to play with so many wonderful guest artists with people that were here at Elmhurst over the years was amazing. When Doc asked us to do that tour with him, that was certainly a highlight. The first time we played with the great vocalist Dee Dee Bridgewater, you almost have tears in your eyes. It's so exciting when she starts to sing, and you're standing next to these people who are such great musicians, and they pull you up, and they pull the kids up too. And then you see the excitement in the kids' eyes, and those kinds of things are certainly certainly highlights for sure. And then all the people you meet, I've been fortunate to a lot of all-state ensembles, and you're always out there meeting people. And there's always funny stories that come out of it. Like there was one, I did the Iowa All-State Band quite a number of years ago, and they asked me to write a piece of music for it that we did with the band. And Larry Kaiser was a great jazz educator. His son, Ryan Kaiser, has gone on and done so many great things in Wynton's band and in New York. The name of the piece, I don't remember why I called it this, but I called the chart Penny Pincher. So like the second day of the rehearsals, Larry and some of the other band directors, so they pulled me over to the side and said, "We got a question for you." And they looked real concerned. I said, "Yeah, what's up?" I thought maybe they're not happy with how the band is going, my rehearsals and stuff with them. And they said, "Well, we're a little concerned about the All-State chart. And the fact, does the title have anything to do with the honorarium you're getting to be here?" I said, "No, absolutely not. Nothing at all." So, stories like that, you always remember them because they just happen, and then in all those all-state groups too, I've been fortunate to have a number of kids that have gone on and become huge professionals in New York who were part of my all-state group. So you see that. And I don't know. There's just a bunch of, and all that, we've been so fortunate with the Elmhurst band. We've done, I think, 34 overseas tours in the time that I taught here. And we played in the major jazz festivals overseas, the Umbria Festival. Dick, you were part of the Montreux Festival when we did that. And we did a festival in Indonesia. We did the Bohemia Jazz Festival in the Czech Republic. We've just done so many of those in the festival in Vienna, in France, and being on those big stages and then getting to hear the musicians too, for our students to do that, and the experiences that they get traveling. You see that those are all huge highlights because it's, that you're affecting students' lives going forward. So I couldn't have had a better gig, and it all worked together for me with the publishing company and the writing, because it helped me. People would invariably know me because of the writing, and then if the band was going somewhere, I could easily get us into play somewhere. So it all worked together. There was never a plan. It just kind of happened, but you work hard at it and it comes together, I think.
It indeed did. And I know you well enough to know that you're not done. So
yeah.
What are you up to now, and what does the future hold?
Well, I'm still doing a few things at Elmhurst. I'm helping with the jazz festivals, just some of the transition because I ran it for so long and I did some of the fundraising for it. And I'm curating a huge collection of recordings that we have here. We got donated 20,000 jazz LPs and 15,000 jazz CDs to the school. It's just an incredible collection. So I'm working on curating that, getting it organized. And then I'm doing some writing. We just did a recording session just a few weeks ago for some new music for the fall, which I'm excited about, and doing some clinics. And I just did the Nebraska All-State Junior High. They did first year they did a Junior High All-State. And so I wrote a piece for it, went out and did that. That was a lot of fun. And doing some other clinics and things. So, but I'm a little freer in terms of not always being chained to the desk all the time. So that's kind of fun. And kind of into toy trains. So I do that too. And something actually outside of music. And but yeah, it doesn't seem like there's any lack of things to do at all. And it's nice to, be able to, sit down, work on some charts and things and not quite be so pressed about everything else I have to do with running the program at Elmhurst and stuff like that. So yeah, and I'll be around going to the conventions and doing all that, doing the booth like we always do and trying to let people know about the music we've got as well.
Doug Beach, you've had a myriad of careers. I mean, it's incredible what you've done. And if I was a young band director needing to have more information, I would be on the phone to you in a heartbeat.
Oh,
and I know that you'd respond. So in closing, I just have to say, it's been a pleasure to know you and to follow your career and interact with you throughout these years. And you are one of the best I've ever known. So thank you, Doug Beach, for this interview, and God bless you.
Thank you, Dick. It's been an honor to be here, and just to, as I said at the beginning, share some time with you again. Our friendship goes back so far, and you've always been a part of that whole career that I've been so fortunate to have, and I'm grateful for that. And I wish you and Bob all the best of luck with this Jazz Zone thing. I can't wait to check these things out. I'm sure they're going to be great.
Doug, thank you so much for being a part of this. It's going to be really, really important to have this out there for people to share your longstanding career. To our viewers, thanks for joining us for this Jazz Zone Together interview. Please check out the entire library of interviews. We know you'll find them of real value to your program. Watch for updates as we're adding new interviews regularly.